A great period of exploration began in the 15th and 16th centuries. A number of nations, mostly Europeans, began to expand their influence around the globe. They pursued conquest and domination of trade, harvesting resources around the planet for the growth and glory of their own empires. Call it the colonial period, the age of empires, the expansion of Western civilization, or the blatant oppression of indigenous cultures around the world. This period of expanding influence lasted hundreds of years, and ultimately the colonies began to push back. They sought self-determination and the resurrection or preservation of their age-old cultures. But the spirit of colonialism did not die easily. Many of today's international tensions are remnants of those influences of the past. It was a time when European royalty controlled the better part of the world, for better or for worse. And it's not altogether rare to find a board game or a card game that emphasizes some of those cultural relationships. Well, the subject of this week's video is one of those games. It was created by a Frenchman named Charles Watteau sometime around 1874. Monsieur Watteau had just purchased a publishing company in that year. Congo was one of the first games he published. The theme is definitely a reflection of world events in the late 19th century. Not at all socially acceptable today, of course, but it's set in that territory of West Africa around Congo and pits four competing nations against each other trying to claim the territory for themselves. It really has nothing to do with the game itself. It's a game of pure strategy. And apparently the games that he published over the years were not in any great numbers. They're very, very rare these days. In fact, a lot of people never even heard of Watteau's company. And Congo, in fact, may have been completely forgotten, if not for another Frenchman named Michel Boutin, who published an account of Congo. Monsieur Boutin wrote a book, which I definitely would like to get my hands on, Jeux des pions pour aujourd'hui. And the game was mentioned in the Winter 2001 edition of Abstract Games magazine. But again, it fell into obscurity. Until now. Let's take a quick look at the rules. The board is an attractive hexagonal array. Playing with four people, each player has 12 pegs of a unique color. The board is empty at the start of the game. A first player can be chosen any way the participants choose, and play will proceed turn after turn leftward around the table. Note that the game should be played through 4 times at a sitting, essentially a series of scoring rounds, allowing each player to go first in a round. Each player will, on their turn, place a peg into an empty space on the board. The only condition for placement is that it cannot be adjacent to a peg of another color, although it can be adjacent to pegs of the same color. Adjacent meaning one space away in any direction. Once a peg is placed, it cannot be moved, and there are no captures of any kind. When a player is blocked and cannot place any more pegs, they stop playing and pass their turns until the game is over. When all players have run out of possible peg placements, the game ends. The first player who was blocked counts up as many points as the number of pegs they were unable to place on the board. These points are awarded to the other 3 players who continued playing. The second blocked player does the same, giving their points total to the other 2 players who remained in the race. The third blocked player awards their points to the last player to place a peg, the winner of that round. So the winner receives points from all the other 3 players who have been left behind. After playing this series of 4 games, each player adds together the scores they've earned in all 4 rounds. The overall winner is the one with the highest total score. To play as a 2-player game, each player uses 2 colors. Even if the two colors belong to one player, pegs of different colors can't be placed next to each other, as in the original 4-player version. So modern players are obliged to leave behind the original theme and just play this strategic 4-player game for what it is. A very interesting strategy game that's over 125 years old. One might say it was ahead of its time. Today, I suspect it might be very popular if the theme was one of a fantasy realm. Pick a fantasy race for each color. Say characters from Small World or Gloomhaven or maybe Cosmic Encounter. And make the board a map of some forgotten realm or maybe a deserted planet somewhere. Yeah, that would work. By the way, this game of Congo should not be confused with other games that use the same name. Board Game Geek has a listing of at least a dozen different games with the word Congo in the title. But Wateo's little game is quite clever, and I think it really deserves to be played. I hope you get a chance to try it. But whatever you play, be sure to play every day. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next week.